On today's show, I have a real treat for you because we attempt to solve a mystery that has lingered for well over 30 long years. And this is the mystery of the demise of a great Kenyan patriot, a fighter in the second liberation of Kenya. Yeah, indeed, somebody was on the forefront. Bishop Alexander Kipsang, Arap Muge. Older Kenyans will of course recognize that name immediately, and fond memories will spring back of a time when long-suffering Kenyans looked everywhere for somebody to fight for them. But the fighters were few. The majority were the traitors, the pretenders, those who are offering themselves today to save Kenya. Yeah. And yet we know have selfish interests at heart. Bishop Muge was selfless. He was a brave man amongst cowards. Officially, it is said that Bishop Muge perished in a road accident along the Eldoret-Tarbo road. On today's show, we will show and reveal how that could never have been a normal road accident. It was in fact an assassination. But the most fascinating part of it is the motive, and especially the circumstances that unraveled shortly before he passed on. They're extremely revealing. Karibu sana to one of my great shows. Oh yes. Now, very quickly, before the bishop became a political activist, let's look at his early life. He was born amongst the Nandi community, and it is said he started behaving strangely from a very young age, contrary to what would be considered normal amongst Nandi children at that time. For instance, with no Christian teachings or background or religious teaching of any manner, he stubbornly refused to partake in the rites of the community, traditional rites. It is instructive to note that the destiny of anybody is normally revealed very early in their lives. And anybody who has studied biographies and the lives of great people will know exactly what I'm talking about. And then he joined the military. Oh yes, many people don't know that. And led a life of the world until he collided with destiny in 1973. After listening to a sermon about Jesus' encounter with the tax collector, his life changed forever. He left the military, gave his life to the Lord, and committed himself to serve mankind and his God for the rest of his life. And his zeal saw him quickly climb up the ranks of the Anglican Church until he became bishop. He is reputed to have started the Eldoret diocese from scratch, and it was inevitable that he would soon come in the crosshairs of the government of Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi then, by speaking out on behalf of the long-suffering Kenyans he met every day in his projects and preaching all over the country. In June 1999, Bishop Muge, alongside with his Maseno counterpart, Bishop Okulu, held a press conference, and they demanded the immediate resignation of President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, and then a free and fair election after that to get a new president for the country. At the time, it was perhaps the most bold statement that had ever been made against the dreaded Moi regime. The country was in shock. And in those days, the politics was such that KANU politicians competed with each other, as to who would be seen more loyal than the other. And of course, in such circumstances, many times politicians went overboard with their pronouncements and declarations, which is exactly what happened when on 12th August, Labour Minister Peter Okondo at the time came out and warned Bishop Muge that were he to step anywhere in Western Province, and especially in Busia, he would see fire. And most probably, he would not leave that area alive. Now, Bishop Muge was not the kind of person to hesitate or even think twice when it came to fulfilling his duty in serving God and man. And so his response to Okondo's statement was predictable. He told the minister that his blood, his innocent blood, Muge's blood, would haunt him forever if anything happened to him, Muge. And 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later, on the 14th of August, 1990, Bishop Muge visited the Busia diocese to a rousing welcome from Kenyans. And his rally went well, without incident. And towards evening, he led the small convoy of his diocese back to Eldoret. And at around 7 p.m., as his vehicle was approaching the Kipsang River, a milk truck, a Mitsubishi Fuso milk truck, lost control, according to eyewitnesses, or seemed to lose control, and headed directly for the bishop's vehicle, hit it at high speed, and dragged the vehicle over several meters, until a ditch stopped the wreckage. It took first responders over an hour walking through the wreckage to remove and rescue the body of the bishop. When the news reached Kenyans, they were in shock. And naturally, the first suspect was the Labour Minister, Peter Okondo, who had made those careless remarks barely 2 days earlier. And in those days, resigning from government was extremely rare. As rare as lack of corruption in Kenya. But under intense pressure from very angry Kenyans, who are well aware of the valuable and great son they had lost, Peter Okondo did the very rare thing, and on 20th August 1990 resigned. It is worth noting that this politician's life from then on, his political career took a nosedive. Despite the great things he had done for his constituents, ever since he was elected at independence. His supporters to this day say that the late Peter Okondo was a victim of defending something that could not be defended. The KANU government of Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Now, what really happened there? Where have you heard of a government warning somebody that they're going to assassinate them, and then going ahead and assassinating them a few days later, 2 days later, 2 days after the warning? Where have you heard? And yet we know the government were involved through the testimony of a former special branch officer who was in the intelligence community at the time, Inspector James Lando Huatenge. Inspector Huatenge, in 2012, told the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission that indeed Muge was assassinated by police officers who had come from Nairobi. But then he added something very strange and confusing. He said the hit was not as a result of any order. No direct order came from anybody in government. Yeah, and especially not from President Moi. Now hold on a minute. Is that true? Are there instances when the intelligence community act on their own without an executive order? Now we'll come back to answer that question because it is key in solving the Alexander Muge assassination. But before we go there, there's another key piece of information I want to give you. After the Alexander Muge demise, I noticed at the time that the security, presidential security of President Moi, went overboard. I mean, those guys were just paranoid. And at the time, I reasoned that maybe they were scared or they had credible information that those fighting for multi-party democracy were planning something evil against the president. But today, I have a different theory, a bombshell of a theory that I'll reveal to you shortly. Just to illustrate what I'm saying, I was working for a computer company at around the time, and we were invited to a ceremony at a school where we had installed computers and helped the students. And that ceremony was going to be graced by the president, President Moi. And the school was in a part of Central Province I had never visited before. And as we were driving along the road towards the school, I noticed a vehicle that was parked on the roadside, with civilian number plates, and it appeared to have broken down. But as we got closer to it, I noticed that the 5 men surrounding the vehicle were looking at us, suspiciously. I recognized them as police officers immediately. Having been brought up as the son of a cop, taken to school by cops, collected from school by cops. Maaskari walinipanguza makamasi nikiwa mdogo. I can smell a cop from 100 miles away. Let me cut to the chase. This so-called broken down vehicle was part of the president's security. Let me give you another clue. At that time, virtually all the major powerful Western powers were against Moi. Many of them wanted Moi out of power, like yesterday. In fact, the second liberation of Kenya was very heavily financed by the West. It was around this time that a political activist, lawyer, Gibson Kamau Kuria, fled to the US Embassy with the police in hot pursuit. In fact, the police camped outside the US Embassy because there's no way they could enter the US Embassy. International protocols. And then guess what happened next? The US ambassador at the time, Smith Hempston, came out with Kuria, bundled him into his own vehicle, his own official vehicle, drove all the way to the airport with the police in hot pursuit, purchased a direct air ticket, escorted Kuria to the aircraft, and waited with him, and only got off shortly before that aircraft took off. And the police were there just watching. Panya ikifly away. Oh yes, things were bad for Moi at that time. Now, I want to draw your attention to something that happened that has not been given a lot of attention, that has never been linked to the murder of Muge, that happened a few weeks before he died. Actually, about 10 weeks before he died. Bishop Muge visited the United States of America. And the fearless bishop, who loved God and feared no man, preached against homosexuality. Now, this was at a time when the Anglican Church had ordained homosexual bishops. And one of them got so angry that he banned Bishop Muge from preaching anywhere near his area. This was in California, United States of America. Bishop Muge spoke about how the Anglican Church leadership, and indeed the leadership of churches in America, had been taken over by homosexuals and lesbians who were in positions of power in the church. In my view, Bishop Muge did this in a loving but firm way. Let me quote a section of his speech, the speech that caused so much trouble for the bishop in the United States. A section of it. He said, Bishop Muge, "We have it plain and clear that Scripture condemns all sorts of immorality, ordaining practicing homosexuals and appointing them as rectors and blessing homosexual unions are indeed signing the death certificates of our churches. Our historic and loving God does not appease people when they go wrong. He calls upon them to repent and to be put right with God. We need to get to the foot of the cross for the salvation of Christ. The discipline of the Church of Christ throughout the world must be maintained. Sin should be rebuked by any and all means." End of quote. Now, just to illustrate how much of a stir the bishop's remarks caused in the United States, an issue of the Washington Post newspaper, very influential Washington Post, on May 26, 1990, carried the screaming headline of how Muge had been barred from speaking as a result of his remarks on homosexuals. Now, we need to understand that intelligence services all over the world are always consulting, talking to each other, looking for ways to cooperate. We also need to be aware that there are various organizations of all kinds worldwide that are extremely powerful, with contacts everywhere. And so it is not hard to imagine such a meeting where somebody says to the Kenyan Intelligence Service, "So and so is a nuisance to you guys. And we have some friends who also don't want him around. He's a problem. And removing him from his position would cause even more problems. Therefore, why don't we get rid of this fellow? We will finance, plan, and orchestrate everything." Because the truth of the matter is that the assassination of Bishop Muge was extremely professional, very well planned, and with no loose ends. It had foreign service written all over it. In other words, it was too neat to be an accident, and it was too neat to be a local operation, with all due respect to our local intelligence community. Incidentally, the man driving the milk truck was charged with dangerous driving and jailed for 7 years. But he never finished his prison term, because 5 years into his jail term, he died. Loose end taken care of, because that man definitely had a lot of information that would have helped us even today. Now, let's go back very briefly and very quickly to the 2012 Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You are an intelligence service. You are under pressure to spill beans, reveal evils that were done in the past. It makes a lot of sense to reveal things which will not harm you in future. Yeah, that is things where you had minimal involvement. Yeah, where you had minimal guilt in the execution of those particular evils. And this is why it's interesting that the things that were revealed by Inspector James Lango Hwatenge were the Muge murder and also the JM assassination. Now, if you are regular on this channel, you know that the JM assassination was not an operation of the intelligence community. It was indeed an operation of the Kiambu Mafia, those who are close to President Jomo Kenyatta. And that is why it was very shoddily done. It was not done by professionals. There are too many loose ends. Yeah. Some of them almost hilarious, if this was not such a serious matter. Like people trying to bundle out the body of somebody they don't want found out of a back window in the mortuary and being caught doing it. Oh yes, that's what happened in the case of JM. In my view, this is further evidence that the involvement of the local intelligence community at that time was minimal. They were involved, lakini walikuwa watu wa mkono. Inspector Hwatenge told us that this operation involving the late Bishop Muge was the last one in an operation they called Shika Msumari, Hold the Nail, which was designed to scare those involved in the second liberation and those fighting for a return to multi-party politics in Kenya at the time. This may be true, but it would seem that what really doomed Bishop Muge was that he fell on the wrong side of very powerful international forces with tentacles everywhere, including our local intelligence community. But he did not get on the wrong side by doing the wrong thing. He got on the wrong side by doing the right thing. I find it super fascinating, the nickname that his peers gave Bishop Alexander Muge. They called him John the Baptist. You know what happened to John the Baptist in the Bible? In my view, Alexander Muge played a key role in opening the doors that led to Kenya's second liberation, Kenya's second aborted liberation. He is a true hero of the country called Kenya. He is also a true hero of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Almighty God, thank you for giving us Alexander Muge. And the Nandi community in Kenya should be very proud that they had a son called Alexander Kipsang Arap Muge, a true great son of the country called Kenya. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give me a like and kindly hang on for the following message, because it is important in the work I continue to do here. While I try my very best to give you real value on this public channel and to give you all the valuable information I can, the truth is there's some information that is way too sensitive to share on this public channel. That information usually ends up in my weekly intelligence briefings, which is usually moto kama pasi. Just to give you a few examples, what really happened to former President of Tanzania, Dr. John Pombe Magufuli? Is it true that he passed on at a Nairobi hospital? Actually, the Magufuli inside story is nothing short of mind-boggling. Most people who have taken in my WIB number 52, which contains this information, have been left breathless. Even the most hardened cynics have been left bila words, if I can put it in the Kenyan way. Another example of a WIB that I published recently. There is a secret that those who are close to Raila Odinga have guarded and continue to guard with everything they have. Why is this particular secret so sensitive? And what is it anyway? It is contained in one of my WIBs. In fact, a recent one. And there's much more, including things you'd never imagine that are happening in the corridors of power that neatly explain what we see unfolding in the public domain. Bottom line, you will never look at Kenyan politics in the same way again after you become a WIB subscriber. Indeed, it is true to say that in most instances, the truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes much more difficult to believe than fiction. But it remains the naked truth. And now you have a golden opportunity of becoming a weekly intelligence briefing subscriber on a monthly basis, which will automatically give you access to every single WIB ever produced. Oh yes, I will send you all the WIBs immediately you become a subscriber. And to become a monthly subscriber, all you need is $9.95 only, or Kenya shillings 995 only. Simply send a blank email to the email address you see on your screens right now, and you'll get an automated response by email instantly, within seconds, with full payment instructions and what you need to do. The same full payment instructions are also included in the description area below this video on YouTube. I strongly recommend that you go for it, because this offer will not last for much longer. I really look forward to seeing you on the other side as a WIB subscriber. Thanks so much for your support. It means a lot to me. And I'm saying that very sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to seeing you on the other side as a WIB subscriber. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.